Welcome into 2-for-1 Drafts. Austin Gayle here with Mike Renner, still doing the remote podcast, but with improved audio. We figured it out. We figured out the work from home setup. Everyone has to with the COVID-19 pandemic. I hope all listeners are staying safe, including you, Mike.
I have kind of figured it out because Riggins is over here on the couch with me, liable to bark at any moment. My dog. He's a terribly behaved bulldog, but we love him anyway. And he'll be the third member of the podcast from now on.
Mike Quinn is the third member of the podcast.
The fourth member of the podcast.
Yeah, he'll be the fourth member. And to give a scouting report on Riggins, Mike's dog, he's built low to the ground, thick boy, fat with an underbite. He's not aggressive, but he can get a little happy at times. He's an interesting guy.
He's a fullback. He's outdated. He's 20 years past his prime. He would have been coveted more in the early 2000s.
I comp him to like a fat sausage. I think that's my NFL player comp for him. Tootsie Roll, for sure. All right, let's dive into the podcast here. Today, we're going to be talking the biggest needs unaddressed by 2020 Super Bowl contenders after free agency. I think this is very important because the teams that are filling needs in free agency feel like they're on the cusp, feel like they can make it to the big dance with a good offseason. And I think this is a good opportunity to talk about these Super Bowl contenders, guys that went teams that went 8-8 or above this past year, except for the Houston Texans, because they took a significant step back in the offseason.
Yeah, we're not including the Texans as a Super Bowl contender for very obvious reasons. I'll say when you lose your best playmaker on offense and you lose, one of your best defensive linemen and really do nothing to replace either of them in the course of the offseason, I think the needle is pointing downwards for them at the moment, unfortunately.
In addition to all those teams that went 8-8 or above, we're also going to be counting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with Tommy Tampa now under center and the Indianapolis Colts as Super Bowl contenders in 2020. Let's kick this off, though, with the reigning Super Bowl champs, the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, this is a team that doesn't have a ton of needs where you need good players at high positional value. They have that. Patrick Mahomes, one of the best quarterbacks, if not the best quarterback in football right now, on a rookie contract. Tyreek Hill, a needle mover at the wide receiver position. Mitchell Schwartz and Eric Fisher, both average to above average offensive tackles on the back end. Tyrann Mathieu was a huge help to them. However, I think if there is still a need for this Kansas City Chiefs team after free agency, it is at cornerback, making me think that the back end of the first round, don't draft a running back like all these other mock drafts have the Kansas City Chiefs doing with DeAndre Swift or Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Go get yourself a cornerback. That's where I feel like there's going to be value for the Chiefs in round one.
Yeah, Brashad Breeland, I mean, they probably don't have enough cap space to retain him. Obviously, Kendall Fuller gone. Now he played safety down the stretch, whatever. They kind of blurred the lines with Tyrann Mathieu and Fuller in terms of safety and cornerback. But I think one thing's for sure, it would behoove them to address the position. And so I think in that defense, you need an all-around type of cornerback. I think if Christian Fulton really is sliding, and he wasn't even in the first round for Lance Zierlein's mock, that draft dropped today, NFL.com. Wasn't even in the first round for him. If he's there on the board at 32, now Zierlein had them going with running back in Georgia's DeAndre Swift, but Christian Fulton's there at 32. You would be crazy, in my opinion, to pass on him there. To me, he is what that defense needs.
And Christian Fulton is getting underrated, in my opinion, in this class. I know Jeffrey Okudah is fantastic. CJ Henderson has all this athletic ability up there with the best man coverage skills in this class. But Christian Fulton, man, you turn on the 2018 tape with Fulton, it is mighty impressive. He battled an ankle injury. I think he suffered again in Texas, against Texas early in the season, had to battle through that. I think Christian Fulton's 2018 tape better than his 2019 tape and a better indicator of how good this player is.
Yeah, I mean, I cannot for the life of me see him after, like I said, watch him in 2018, and he wasn't even like that bad in 2019. Like it's getting a little overblown. And the fact when it was bad, it was because of injury. I would be floored if he slips out of the first round. So give you guys a first round pick on these, and then I think a later round pick. And if they got a guy like Jalen Johnson, the Utah cornerback, who I don't think has been generating a lot of first round sort of hype at this point, haven't seen him there. But if they got him at the back of the second round, those are two guys that, like I said, I think you want an all-around cornerback in that Chiefs defense, a guy capable of playing man, playing zone. To me, he has that and then some in this class.
All right, let's press on here. We got a little bit of breaking news from Tom Pelissero of NFL Media. The Steelers, the Pittsburgh Steelers are finalizing a deal to send a 5th-round pick. Oh, Riggins is excited about this deal. Send a 5th-round pick to the Baltimore Ravens for Chris Wormley and a 7th-round pick. Your take, Mike Renner.
My take is, why don't we just interrupt the podcast to talk?
I saw trade with an exclamation point and then clicked into the tweet and I got excited. But as I read through that tweet, I got a little less and less excited. So not super big take on the Baltimore Ravens trade there, but an interesting.
That's like, I mean, why would you? I'm not saying why would you do that. Like, Chris Wormley was a former 3rd rounder. I kind of liked him coming out too. Like, I thought that was good value in the 3rd round. But like, you just gave up the same thing the Ravens gave up to get Calais Campbell, you know?
Yeah, that is.
The Steelers would not have had the cap space to fit Calais Campbell in there. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of just, it makes sense. I mean, he was available after the Campbell deal because they were redundant to themselves. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think really, if you're trading in the division like that to a division rival, you must not think highly of a guy.
All right, let's get back to what's important here. The Kansas City Chiefs, cornerback still in need in the draft. Christian Fulton at the back end of round 1 or Jalen Johnson on day 2 would be great fits in Kansas City. To the San Francisco 49ers, the runner-ups in the Super Bowl this past year, wide receiver, Emmanuel Sanders, still a free agent. Dante Pettis has not panned out to what some draft analysts wanted him to be. Marquise Goodwin, I think a free agent as well. I'm not sure, actually. Marquise Goodwin, though, regardless, is not a true number 1 wide receiver. At 13th overall, they traded DeForest Buckner, the defensive tackle, for the 13th overall pick from the Indianapolis Colts. I think they go wide receiver. Either it's Jerry Jeudy, who I think fits better in Kyle Shanahan's scheme than CeeDee Lamb, or they go get CeeDee Lamb. Both of those players are true wide receiver ones.
Yeah, it's like from the movie Draft Day where writes on the card, I forget even the name.
Vontae Mack, no matter what.
No matter what. Yeah, Jeudy or Lamb, no matter what, at 13. If one of them is there, you cannot pass on them if you're the San Francisco 49ers. It gets more interesting, though, if they do, or if neither of them are there. Do they go someone like Henry Ruggs? I'm not so sure, with Marquise Goodwin on their roster. Similar players. Now, that's not calling Henry Ruggs Marquise Goodwin. That's just saying they bring similar skill sets to the table. I think a late round option that I like for them is KJ Hill from Ohio State because of just what Kyle Shanahan sort of seemingly covets in his scheme. Route runners, after the catch type of guys. That's what Dante Pettis was. That's what Deebo Samuel was. I think that is what KJ Hill is. And if you're talking about 3rd, 4th rounders in this draft class, he's going to be pretty comfortably the best route runner of that bunch in that area.
Day 2, day 3 prospects I like for them at that position, Devin Duvernay or Antonio Gibson. I know they're very similar to Deebo Samuel, but why not have 2? I think
Antonio Gibson would just be like Jalen Hurd. They're the same guy, like not the same guy, but that's like that is kind of their type, though. It's just guys who are dynamic with the ball in their hands.
And I'd say Antonio Gibson is better with the ball in his hands than Jalen Hurd. I think he's a better athlete after the catch.
Dude, yeah, I mean, we hated the Hurd, or I hated the Hurd. That was not. He did not, to me. Wasn't a good wide receiver. It wasn't a particularly good running back either, unfortunately.
All right. Well, either way, San Francisco 49ers, they dress wide receiver in this draft, whether it's Jerry Jeudy or CeeDee Lamb, which I say Jerry Jeudy because I think he's a better separator, better routes, better releases. But CeeDee Lamb, very, very good after the catch. And I know the San Francisco 49ers do covet that at the receiver position. I think CeeDee Lamb to San Francisco 49ers would be good as well. Day 2, KJ Hill of Ohio State, a guy who lit the Senior Bowl on fire. Maybe Devin Duvernay of Texas or Antonio Gibson of Memphis, 2 guys that are very, very good with the ball in their hands that will be available on day 2, day 3. Moving to the Green Bay Packers, who we have 3rd on this list, by the way. Wisconsin homer, Green Bay Packers homer over here.
This is reverse draft order.
Okay. Anyway, Packers, the Green Bay Packers, their position of need, just like the San Francisco 49ers after free agency, is the wide receiver position. And at 30 overall in the 1st round, Denzel Mims, Brandon Ayuk, maybe Jalen Reagor. Let's add some explosiveness to this Packers offense.
That's what it has to be. And it's the explosiveness aspect, there. Marquez Valdes-Scantling, they wanted him to be that. He has some of the worst ball skills I've seen of any wide receiver, in the NFL. Just like he cannot consistently track the ball down the football field. And if you're a deep threat and can't consistently track the ball down the football field, you're not a deep threat anymore. You're worthless. You don't bring much to the table, unfortunately. So he kind of fell out of favor in that Packers offense. They need someone to bring some speed to the table there because Devontae Adams, as good as he is not exceptional. He's not super fast. Like he ran a 4.56 coming out. He is not he wins on the intermediate underneath range, not necessarily deep. So yes, those two guys, Mims, Ayuk, I think first round makes a ton of sense for them to address it. But if they do somehow pass in the first round, I think their type of wide receiver that they've drafted over the years in Green Bay is Tyler Johnson, the Minnesota wide receiver.
You've compared to Devontae Adams before. I mean, yes. Tyler Johnson not going to run a fast 40. Well, he's not going to run a 40 at all with all pro days canceled with COVID-19 pandemic. However, Tyler Johnson, a slower receiver, doesn't have that top speed, but what he does bring to the table, releases and route running, after catchability, that sort of thing. So that is, if they do pass, which I will be floored if they do. They're just in a good position to get talent at wide receiver around one that would have value. But if they do, that to me would be their second round, third round type of option. Green Bay Packers still need a receiver after free agency. You're hearing back into the first round, Denzel Mims of Baylor, Brandon Ayuk of Arizona State. I also like Jalen Reagor of TCU at the back end there. And then Tyler Johnson as a day 2, day 3 option. Moving to the Tennessee Titans, who with the re-signing of Ryan Tannehill, I won't mention the tag of Derrick Henry. I don't think that improves or disproves their Super Bowl odds as much. I think with the Tennessee Titans, they still have A.J. Brown, Ryan Tannehill, a good offensive line. I think they're still going to be there, the back end of the first round. All right, so with the Tennessee Titans, still need a defensive tackle. Jordan Elliott of Missouri is coveted as a first-round talent on PFF's board right now. A day 2, day 3 guy by other analysts, other media. However, really do like what Jordan Elliott brings to the table. He, at the back end of the first round for the Titans, I think makes sense. Yes,
and I think there's some other names too, like Ross Blacklock. If he sneaks into the back end of the first round, this could be where it is. But the Titans, they kind of smoothed out this roster, with that Vic Beasley signing. I don't think they're pigeonholing themselves into necessarily getting another edge guy across from Harold Landry at the back end of the first. And with the Jarrell Casey trade, it kind of just red flag, bright lights went off at defensive tackle that's where they're weak. They only really have Daquan Jones there right now as any sort of impact player. So while we're not the biggest fans of drafting defensive tackles highly in the draft, the impact and sort of value you're getting isn't exceptional. I still like this defensive tackle class. And if I still believe in Jordan Elliott as a riser in this defensive tackle class as a possible, guy who, once you get around draft time, similar to kind of Frank Ragnow, I remember once you get around draft time, it starts to leak, oh, people actually like this guy at the back end of the first. I feel similarly about Jordan Elliott heading into late April.
How about day 2 options? If they don't feel need a defensive tackle in round 1, at the back end of round 1, what are some names that you like for the Titans to fill defensive tackle?
I think they just need some pocket pushing ability there because of those speed guys on the outside. Like you need it collapse. You need the quarterback to not be able to step up because Landry is an pure win the edge guy. Vic Beasley is a pure get to the edge guy. So some pocket push. And I think the best option in that sort of area would be Devon Hamilton from Ohio State. Saw it at the Senior Bowl. Saw him, taking the center back routinely. That is his bread and butter. So I do think that if you do miss out, in the first round, I don't want to say miss out, but if that's not where you go in the first round, Devon Hamilton, probably, I'd say the third might be where he comes off the board, would make a lot of sense for them.
All right, moving forward here to sum it up, Tennessee Titans defensive tackle need Jordan Elliott of Missouri at the back end of round 1, maybe Devon Hamilton, the Ohio State defensive tackle who put on a good performance at the Senior Bowl, was kind of thought of as this big, beefy nose tackle type that plays the run, but he pushed the pocket at the Senior Bowl. I think he can do that at the next level. Going to the Baltimore Ravens. Off-ball linebacker, a need for this team, and I think there's some good ones in the spot they're currently at. You look at Zach Bond of Wisconsin, a hybrid edge off-ball linebacker type that I think would fit well in Martindale's system. And also, I think this is my favorite, and you brought this up first, so I'm giving you credit wholeheartedly. Kyle Duggar of Lenore-Rhine, moving him to an off-ball linebacker type of role because he is that kind of rocked up 215-pounder in this very versatile positionless defense, like what kind of Clemson is trying to do at the college level, is something I really can't get on board with.
Yeah, I think it's the explosive blitzing aspect at the linebacker position that is necessary in that Ravens defense, and that what they should get. Obviously, the need is obvious. They really have no one there. LJ Fort right now as a starter. Like, are you really going to go in the season with LJ Fort as your starter? I would hope not if you're the Baltimore Ravens. So Zach Bond, Kyle Duggar, if at the back end of round one, their ability to get to the quarterback and get to the quarterback in a hurry as an off-ball blitzer, because they blitz more than any other defense in the NFL, very coveted in that scheme. And then a later guy, day 2, day 3, Jordan Brooks from Texas Tech has a similar skill set, not necessarily the sort of probably the moves or the ability to beat blockers that Bond does. And that's why Bond's going to be more than likely coveted highly in this draft. But he comes downhill in a hurry, and that guy can hit like a brick. And if he's one-on-one with a running back, the running back's not winning that matchup. So I do think Jordan Brooks has similar qualities. And if you're getting him end of, second round, you'd be pretty happy about that in that defense.
All right, moving forward here from the Baltimore Ravens to the Seattle Seahawks, and I love this fit. I love this position of need for Seattle. Cornerback, still very important position for them, and there's 2 of them that fit what they like a lot on day 1 and day 2. Day 1 option, Trayvon Diggs, super long arms, can play outside corner. If he gets his hands on you, he's up there with some of the better cover corners in this class. Trayvon Diggs of Alabama, and Bryce Hall, who's coming off a pretty significant injury, but man, in 2018, led all college, all defensive backs in forcing completions, according to PFF. Bryce Hall of Virginia, another long-armed cornerback that maybe isn't up there from a top speed standpoint with some of the faster cornerbacks in this class, but Trayvon Diggs and Bryce Hall, very long and win with length at the college level. Yeah,
so they have a handful of needs on this roster. If they're not able to re-sign Jadeveon Clowney, which it doesn't seem it's going to be the case, they obviously need a pass rusher too. LJ Collier couldn't even see the field last year. And yes, they signed Bruce Irvin, but it's not Bruce Irvin at this point in his career, not a great option. Yes, they need tackle and offensive line help as well. But I do think, and I said this before, if you're going to come through the NFC in this day and age with Tom Brady now there, with Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, Jimmy Garoppolo, with everything, with all those quarterbacks in the NFC, you better have a damn good secondary. They don't have close to a secondary that can win in the NFC right now. So that to me would be priority numero uno. Trayvon Diggs, and they have a type there in Seattle, long press corners. Trayvon Diggs has that in the first. Bryce Hall, Virginia cornerback, has that skill set in the second. Like there is a type. Now they haven't drafted cornerbacks that highly. They've relied a lot on third round guys and later to be their secondary over the course of the Pete Carroll and John Schneider era there. But with how pressing of a need it is, I think that has to change. And I think this is the year it does.
Moving to the Minnesota Vikings, who, after trading Stephon Diggs to the Buffalo Bills, have 2 first-round picks at the back end of the first round at number 22 and number 25. 2 kind of positions of need for them are wide receiver and edge defender. I think they'll have opportunities in round 1 and day 1 and day 2 to fill those positions, especially with 2 picks in the first round. Starting with wide receiver, what are some names that make sense for the Vikings, specifically in round 1?
So I think with Stephon Diggs, what you lost was any semblance of a downfield threat. Like Thielen is your underneath intermediate guy. Yes, he can win down the field, but he doesn't have the speed to, threaten and scare you down the football field. So I think some speed at the receiver position will come in handy. So Jalen Reagor, to me, that would be an ideal fit in just terms of the explosiveness, getting down the football field to replace what you lost from Stephon Diggs. You're never going to be able to replace his, full route running skill set, but you need to replace that downfield threat, or else you risk turning into the Eagles. You risk turning into the Patriots if you just don't have speed at that position, where everyone's just squatting on all of those routes, on all those underneath routes. So that to me makes a lot of sense. The early rounds, someone like that. In the later rounds would be like a Devin Duvernay from Texas, former track star, 4.39 sort of guy, has the speed. Obviously, he played slot at Texas, had a lot of screen passes there. But like he, in the bowl game against Javelin Guidry, he ran a 4.29, was producing down the football field. I think he can be your vertical slot option at the next level. So those 2 make a ton of sense to me.
At edge defender, what are some names?
So Mike Zimmer has a type at edge defender. He likes tall. He likes long. Dating back to, drafted Daniel Hunter, fits that mold. Dating back to his days in the Bengals when they, Michael Johnson, Carlos Dunlap. He likes those edge setters that can push the pocket with length. To me, AJ Epinesa, this is where he'd come off the board in the first round, because that is who he is. He has the length. If you're in a role like that in the NFL, I think he can stick there in in Minnesota. I don't even know why I said New England, at 4-3 defensive end there, and just kind of be your edge pocket pusher, every single snap sort of guy. I think that would be a great role for him. And there's not many, to be honest, that fit. So when they were, like I said, with Cincinnati and in Minnesota, they got, Daniel Hunter was a third rounder, I believe. Carlos Dunlap, a third rounder. I think Michael Johnson might have been a second. Like, they haven't drafted those guys super highly, but gotten successful play out of them. I think Trevis Gibson is the one guy who, after the first round, would fit that mold for me in terms of length, size, edge setter kind of guy, and a project, but has all the tools to get it done.
I think that AJ Epinesa fit to the Minnesota is nice. I really do like that, especially now that he's going to probably slide in the first round after, what was poor athletic testing at the combine. If he falls past 25, I'd be pretty wowed. I mean, I think AJ Epinesa to the Vikings, I think, is a good fit. And I also Trevis Gibson is a guy we've had on the podcast on a previous episode, a guy that I think is underrated in this class. Friend of the pod, Trevis Gibson. I think he's underrated in this class. I mean, he's earned high pass rushing grades at Tulsa, played out of position a bit. I think he plays more of an edge role at the next level, and I think he could thrive at it. I think those two guys, AJ Epinesa, Trevis Gibson, I would highlight those two guys as options for the Minnesota Vikings.
I just did.
Yep, there you go. There you go. New Orleans Saints. Let's look at wide receiver for them. I think they need some speed with Ted Ginn Jr., now a free agent.
Yes, this one is a little obvious. Traquan Smith, he's not great, and he has some speed, but I think they could add some guy who's dynamic with the ball in their hands as well to that. I've been pushing the Laviska to New Orleans train. I don't know how the NFL is going to feel about his injuries, and again, with the coronavirus going around, guys with injuries might be screwed in this in terms of the getting, evals before the draft, getting to, team facilities so doctors can check them out. That might not even be feasible prior to late April's draft. So guys like Laviska may see some nosedives come draft time, but I still love the fit. I mean, adding his playmaking ability to Michael Thomas, to Alvin Kamara, to Sean Payton, who himself has coronavirus. Hopefully he wish him good health there, but it just makes too much sense as a later round option. Again, dynamism, ball in the guy's hands. He can make something work with it. That's KJ Hamler to me, Penn State wide receiver, small guy, slot kind of option at the NFL level, but so fast, so dynamic with the ball in his hands. I just think you feed him the ball on screens and that sort of stuff, and you're going to have good results.
I think the Laviska Shenault Jr., I mean, he comes in and can be what they want Taysom Hill to be, but he probably just doesn't throw the football down the field. I mean, this guy can be a gadget player that can do a lot of better things with the football in his hands than what Taysom Hill can do. And as for KJ Hamler, can instantly fill that Ted Ginn Jr. role that they're kind of losing with him being a free agent. Hamler, similar ball skills to Ted Ginn Jr. I mean, Ted Ginn Jr. doesn't necessarily attack the ball that well, and KJ Hamler, ball skills, a concern with him. Buffalo Bills, I think, no first round pick, just traded for Stephon Diggs. The need there, cornerback opposite of Trey White. I think that's a huge win for the Bills if they can find a guy on day 2, day 3.
Yeah, so they have options. This actually pouring over the Bills roster, it makes a lot of sense why they gave up that first for Stephon Diggs. It's because they don't really have needs now. Mm-hmm. Like maybe guard they could use. John Feliciano is not the best option at guard at the moment, but like they have options at least everywhere that look like they don't have a liability on that roster. But I do think Josh Norman was cooked last year. Like you may not be getting great play out of Josh Norman across from Tre'Davious White if you expect him to be a starter. Levi Wallace, I mean, took a bit of a step back in year 2. I'm not sure you're going to rely on him to give you high level play. I think a guy like Cameron Dantzler would make a lot of sense. If you're looking for that outside corner opposite Tre'Davious White, they could obviously address the slot as well. But Cameron Dantzler, a zone guy in terms of has the length, has the instincts, and that speed will not be nearly as an issue in Sean McDermott's scheme as it would be elsewhere. Like he has similar speed to what Josh Norman had coming out, and Josh Norman had his best years with Sean McDermott. So I do think that Cameron Dantzler, if there's a team that would still covet him highly, it would be someone like the Buffalo Bills.
As day 2, day 3 options, I see you have listed here Josiah Scott, Michigan State, and Amik Robertson, the Louisiana Tech cornerback that's graded very well in PFF system for all the right reasons. This guy gets his hand on the football. A ton of forced incompletions for Amik Robinson. The problem is small ass dude. This dude is tiny. And for that reason, definitely not playing outside cornerback in the NFL, is going to have to find a role in the slot. But, adding slot help, a guy like Amik Robertson, who's a feisty, willing tackler, maybe he does get beat down by some bigger backs. But Amik Robinson, I think an impressive player in coverage, and his grades reflect that.
Yeah, so that's the other thing. It's like they could still use slot. Like they could use help as a slot cornerback. And those guys, Josiah Scott from Michigan State, Amik Robinson from LA Tech, have the best zone instincts. If they were 6 foot tall, they'd be first round picks right now, but they're 5'8", 5'9", and they're 185 pounds. And they just get thrown around when wide receivers want to get physical with them. They're just not going to hold up on the outside in the NFL, but they do, that still can work and win in the slot. So I do think both those guys are your probably third round slot cornerback options that could actually step in and make a difference for you right away. Similar to like a Chauncey Gardner-Johnson from a season ago.
Oh, man, Chauncey was fantastic for the New Orleans Saints this past year. Really do like Chauncey's tape from 2019. All right, New England Patriots, 23rd overall pick. You know what they need? It's a replacement for Tom Brady. I think it's their time to take a flyer on a high-risk, high-reward type of quarterback in this class. And no quarterback better than Jordan Love, the roller coaster that is the Utah State product, Jordan Love, a guy that has the high end of Patrick Mahomes, as said by multiple analysts, even Brady Quinn on the PFF pod. I think Riggins speaks to that as well. But I think Jordan Love, a fit at number 23 overall for the Patriots.
Yes. So my thing is I actually thought about dropping them from this list of Super Bowl contenders because realistically, without Tom Brady, are they going to win the Super Bowl? But I didn't really want to tempt fate. I didn't want to have that come back to bite me. So I put them on this list. I didn't want to antagonize Belichick, poke the bear, so to speak. Put them on this list. But yes, it's obvious. They need a quarterback. I'm not sure draft is your best bet of actually fixing it, but I love the idea of drafting Jordan Love if you're the New England Patriots. Now, we don't see him as a first-round pick, but I can see a scenario where he turns into an NFL starter. Like there is a lot to like about his talent. If anyone's going to get the most talent on the quarterback, it's probably going to be someone like Bill Belichick, the New England Patriots. So the situation makes a lot of sense. And from the perspective of if you're quote unquote tanking in 2020, if you want to get the highest draft pick, if you are bottoming out, you start a rookie in Jordan Love who just almost threw as many picks as touchdowns last year and who might not necessarily be ready to start in the NFL. Chances are you're going to bottom out. Like chances are it's not going to be good year one and you will struggle. So that could secure you someone like a Trevor Lawrence, someone like a Justin Fields at the top of the first round. So I love it from a lot of different perspectives there, taking Jordan Love.
With that being said, and I've said this on a handful of PFF content and things like that, Jameis Winston, New England Patriots, I want to see it. I want to see Belichick get the best out of Winston. Jordan Love is Jameis Winston with a higher ceiling and at a much cheaper price tag. I mean, from a contract standpoint, I think Jordan Love, high risk, high reward, but way higher ceiling than where Jameis is right now, knowing what we know about Jameis with his years in the NFL. I think Jordan Love to the Patriots definitely like that. Day 2, day 3 option at quarterback to compete with Jarrett Stidham. Washington State's Anthony Gordon. Definitely like this guy. I mean, he's graded very well. Eric has said he might have better value on day 2 than Justin Herbert has on day 1. Gardner, he gets the Gardner Minshew comps, but this guy just has a feel for the position. You see it in his games where this guy can just he plays the quarterback position well. He doesn't have maybe the high-end talents of some of the other quarterbacks in this class, but he has that innate feel for what has to happen when things break down, creating outside of structure and those things. And I think there's reason to like Anthony Gordon a lot.
And he can operate an offense like New England's is kind of the other thing. Like you're not going to throw Jalen Hurts in there and operate New England's offense. You're not even going to throw Justin Herbert in there. To me, he's not a great fit for what New England does in terms of quick, accurate decision-making. Anthony Gordon's much better at that. He just doesn't have necessarily really the special throws on the football field or the big arm to make all the throws. He is good though in that get snap, process quick, process numbers on defense. A lot of because you heard I don't know if we've talked about it before on this pod about how it was Gardner Minshew talking about Mike Leach's offense is just looking at numbers. It's just I have 3 here. They have 2. I'm going there. And that's how you got to see that, process it quickly, and then go there quickly. A lot of that's kind of what Tom Brady does in the offense, in the Patriots offense. Now, obviously a little bit more complex and purely that, but it's about deducing right at the snap where your best matchup is, and then going to that in that New England offense and getting it on time so that you maximize, so that 5-yard gain can turn into that 5-yard pass can turn into an 8-yard gain, which can then move the stick. So I think he can operate what New England asked him to do a lot better than some of the other, maybe better prospects at the quarterback position in this class.
All right, I'm going to pause our, overview of Super Bowl contenders needs that haven't been addressed in free agency to announce that the Denver Broncos are signing Melvin Gordon to a 2-year, $16 million contract with $13.5 million guaranteed. Mike, immediate reactions to that. I personally am just blown away. To give a running back that much money guaranteed, I feel like is absurd. And I can't imagine there was that big of a bidding war for Gordon's services. I mean, they have Phillip Lindsay. They have Royce Freeman. It is not a position of need. I'm lost by this contract. I'm lost by how teams are still falling into this idea that running backs deserve these types of deals.
Man, they were good. They were good at running back. Phillip Lindsay has averaged the same yards per carry as Saquon Barkley over his career.
Melvin Gordon is going to make more than Phillip Lindsay over the next couple of seasons. I'm just blown away by this. You struck gold in an undrafted free agent out of Colorado and Phillip Lindsay, and then you go and still allocate money to the position rather than going to try and improve positions of value. You just saw Mackenzie Alexander sign a 1-year, $4 million contract with the Cincinnati Bengals, and you're going to go give $13.5 million to a running back and Melvin Gordon. I just find that insane. All of the data points that money is better spent elsewhere. Yeah.
I mean, John Elway won a Super Bowl with what? Terrell Davis was what round? Third? It was a later round draft pick. I don't know. You're not $8 million though is not really a starter elsewhere. It's not like it cost them, a starting cornerback or starting linebacker. That was what Christian Kirksey got from the Packers, and he's not anything great at the linebacker position. So I'm not sure it's a ton of money, but it was not a position of need, and it's not necessarily an upgrade in my opinion. So I'm not sure why exactly they had to do that, but yeah.
All right, here we go. The Broncos grab their next version of Terrell Davis and Melvin Gordon here in Denver.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see what Emmanuel Sanders signs for, because not that they were going to re-sign Emmanuel Sanders, but you can probably get an option at a different position, maybe a veteran option that would have upgraded for $8 million a year.
Yeah, I mean, and $13.5 million guaranteed is kind of.
He's there for 2 years. Yeah,
that's a big number. I just don't really get it. What about Robbie Anderson? Even Robbie Anderson to Denver. I'm interested to see what he signs for.
That would be a great fit.
Because Robbie Anderson, one of the 5, up there with the best free agents available right now. I mean, I don't know. Nickel will be cool.
He may not be on everyone's board though, for reasons we've recently discussed on the podcast.
That's very true. That's very true. Let's get back to the pod here. Let's get back to addressing needs for Super Bowl contenders after free agency. For the Philadelphia Eagles, they add Darius Slay via trade, and then they make him the highest paid cornerback in football. I love Darius Slay. We've seen on Twitter PFF getting some flack for that grade this past year. He gave up catches at the catch point, and we talked about this off the air. It's that's still a negative. Giving up receptions is a negative no matter where you slice it. However, I still think at 29 years old, Darius Slay, one of the better cornerbacks in the NFL. Philadelphia, though, still has a pretty glaring need at linebacker. Do you see a linebacker in round 1 worth taking for Philadelphia at 21?
Yeah, as much as everyone wants to give them a wide receiver because their wide receiver core was so bad last year, Sean Jackson comes back this year, and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside's in year 2. It could turn around quickly. A lot of injuries were a factor there. So they don't necessarily have to go, wide receiver round 1, but their linebacking core right now is pretty rough. You got TJ Edwards, you got Duke Riley, you got Nathan Jerry. That's not good. That is objectively not good.
Oh my God.
And with the athleticism of some of these linebackers, a guy like Patrick Queen in the first round could just make a big difference comparatively. I mean, just athletically. Duke Riley and TJ Edwards, basically, those dudes can barely move. So I do think that
Nate
linebacker could be fit. Well, Jerry converted safety. He can't tackle or do a lot. He's just not going to. None of those guys are, all kind of liabilities in their own, individual ways. So I do think linebacker could be the pick now at this point for them at 21. So Patrick Queen make a lot of sense there. To me, Troy Dye is still kind of this, third rounder that I think can actually improve your coverage, right out the gate. I think he has that sort of skill set. And, playing a lot of zone like the Eagles have in recent years. I'm not sure what they're going to be doing this year, though. With the turnover, I think would make a lot of sense for them.
Here's a name on day 2 for Philadelphia. How about Willie Gay Jr. of Mississippi State? Bring that athleticism. You say Duke Riley can't move. How about I bring in Willie Gay? Clocked what in the low 4th quarters at the combine? Explosive dude. I mean, he's got some off-field question marks, but I'm ready to do it if you want.
He is kind of like the sleeping, like who's gonna pull the trigger. It feels like he's like destined to play for the Bengals next year, right?
No, I don't agree with Devontae's perfect kind of comp there, or whatever you're getting at. I think.
Well, personality, no, like you can't punch a quarterback. Who's going to take it? How many people are going to take that risk?
Dude, Daniel Jeremiah said he's been awesome in the interviews.
I guarantee he's off.
Really?
Guarantee.
I don't think he's off as many boards as Vontaze Burfict was. Burfict went undrafted.
Okay, yeah, he's not Vontaze Burfict, but like the Bengals are the team that just doesn't take that guy. They took Joe Mixon in the 2nd round. They just don't take that guy off but they give a shit what their fans think about who they're drafting and what their personality is. Like Pac-Man Jones, they're like, please come back.
How has Robbie Anderson?
There's a video of you just slugging a girl at a bar.
I mean, Robbie Anderson feels destined for the Bengals if that's the case. I mean, bring him over.
Shit.
I mean, that's not a bad shout. All right, let's move forward here because the Bengals are not on this list as Super Bowl contenders.
Yeah.
But Chicago Bears still have a need at cornerback. I mean, they have needs everywhere. Why are they on this list, Mike? I don't think the Bears are Super Bowl contenders.
They have a Super Bowl winning quarterback. If you have a Super Bowl winning quarterback, you're a contender.
That is a joke. I'm going to call it out right now.
No, I mean, the defense is still good, though.
We'll talk to Chicago Bears. Need at cornerback. What are some names? Because they don't have a round 1 pick. I mean, what are some names on day 2, day 3 for the Chicago Bears that can help that defense?
They don't really have a lot of needs, though. Like, you look at this roster, it's pretty complete. They could use guard. I don't think that's not going to be bang for your buck, though, with this roster. Cornerback would be bang for your buck. They lost Prince Amukamara. They have Buster Screen in the slot. They have Kyle Fuller on one side. I think they need NFL-ready cornerbacks, too. And to me, most NFL-ready cornerback that's not going to be in the first round is probably someone like Damon Arnett. 1, because Ohio State cornerbacks are all NFL-ready. 2, because he's 23 years old already. Like, this guy is a grown man. So I do think if he's there for them in the 2nd round, that there's a good chance that could be the pick for them. If we go even later rounds with how much zone they play there in Chicago. One of my favorite later round zone cornerbacks is Penn State's John Reed. I think he just has great movement skills. I think his feet are real quick, and he's did a lot of pedaling out. Did a lot of pedaling out at Penn State. A lot of zone reads, a lot of looking at the quarterback and the wide receiver at the same time. That's what he'll be doing in Chicago. I think he could also join that. Another guy who's 23 years old already. Like, he's already a grown man. So I think they need that in the Bears defense with how all in they are at the moment.
All right, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Talk about a team that's all in. They not traded for. They signed Tom Brady, now Tommy Tampa, 2 years, $50 million contract, as I think what it was signed to.
Did they?
Yeah, 2 years.
What?
$50 million.
Where have I been?
For Tommy Tampa. We have T-shirts on PFF.com. Go to the PFF shop right now.
George keeps making us talk about Tom Brady.
He does.
Everything we do, he's like, just bring up Brady.
Just bring him up. Bring him up. All right. Well, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, though, 14th overall pick in the draft. They can push for a Super Bowl in this window. Definitely can. And I think their glaring need, and you agree with this too, offensive tackle. They need to address offensive tackle. If they're going to have Brady back there holding the football longer than probably he ever has in his career, they're going to need some help on the bookend.
Yeah. So I use OurLads. If you've never been to OurLads.com, I use OurLads for depth charts. It's a great resource. Love them because for some unknown reason, even though we track every player on every football play, we don't collect depth charts at PFF. So I use them for depth charts. And at the moment, they usually have like position by position and then a name and then a name behind that. At right tackle, there's not a single name. They do not have a guy at right tackle at the moment for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That seems like a bad thing. If you have a 43-year-old quarterback who you just paid $25 million to be your franchise, basically, you're going to want to protect that investment, especially in Bruce Arians' offense, which has continuously one of the longest times throw in the NFL, continuously takes the deepest dropbacks. Like, he will be under heat in that offense more than he ever was in New England. So getting a stud right tackle is, priority number 1 at the moment in the draft. They're in luck with how this one's shaking out. Andrew Thomas, to me, people are saying he's going to fall there. That's just slam dunk, home run, sprint in the card, take him, stick him at the right side, and just don't even look back, because that is your best bet to pass, to get you safe and up to date in pass pro year one.
I think they have to do it. I can't imagine them passing on offensive tackle, especially if Andrew Thomas does fall to 14. But if they do pass on offensive tackle, maybe add a safety blanket there at receiver. I don't know, Justin Jefferson, perhaps, if they do like him a ton to play him in the slot. I'm not sure. But if
they're not going to go receiver in the first round. They could go defense.
They could go defense. They could go defense. If they don't address offensive tackle in round one, give me a name for day 2, day 3.
So Jason Licht, I think, has a type in terms of what he likes. And one of his types is small school guys, the offensive line. Both guards right now were D3 guys. Alex Kappa, what was he? Humboldt State. Ali Marpet was Hobart.
Oh, there it is.
So those guys were not. So I think Ben Barch out of St. John's, D3, would be their type. And I think he actually, from what we saw at the Senior Bowl, I think he's ready to play in the NFL. You would think a guy coming from that level of competition would struggle. For him to not only not struggle, but be very impressive in the one-on-one pass protection drills is very encouraging. So, yeah, I think Ben Barch in round 2, if they don't go tackle in round 1, which they got to go tackle in round 1, to be honest. But if they don't, Ben Barch round 2 would be a good fit for them.
I think with Ben Barch, too, he could bring that smoothie to the TB12 diet. And I think part of that, now the TB12 diet has that smoothie. Brady
would just puke on sight if he had to drink that. His body he would turn into like an old man. All the years of not eating tomatoes or whatever he doesn't eat would just come back.
I would put good money on whoever drafts Ben Barch, that there will be media content made on one of his teammates drinking the smoothie. I'm just going to bet good money on that, because they just make so much of that at the combine.
That's the lowest hanging fruit. Vegas wouldn't even put odds on that. It's too obvious.
Fair. All right. Let's.
They're putting odds on everything right now because they need the money.
Let's speed round through these last few teams here, these last few Super Bowl contenders. All right. Dallas Cowboys need at edge defender. What's your take here? Do they attack it in round 1? I think they're picking 19th overall. I think cornerback makes more sense for them. Defensive back specifically, or not less specifically at 19. But do you think edge in round 1, or is it more of a day 2 pick for them?
Yeah, I mean, they really need edge, though, is the thing. As much as, cornerback still looks ugly, they have options. Anthony Brown has played all right in the past. If they go with him on the outside, they really don't have options. Dorrance Armstrong, still can't believe he was a 4th-round pick way back when. Joe Jackson, a 5th-rounder last year. I mean, maybe Randy Gregory is cleared and plays again after, all those suspensions and the NFL laxing its policy on marijuana. But I think it's a huge need. But I agree. I actually agree with you in terms of I'm not even going to give you a name to draft in round 1. I don't think that's where I want to address it. There are better players at other positions that they also need. So I'm not going to give you a name for round 1. But I think they make a lot of sense for Julian Okwara. That's where I could see him coming off the board in round 2 with this athleticism, with what they've coveted at the position over the years, guys that can penetrate and get upfield. To me, that's Julian Okwara. Now, I get that it's a different DC, but I still think some of that can still translate.
It's crazy how not necessarily good this edge defender class is. Like after Chase Young, there is a significant drop off in this class.
Well, so I like them, but they're flawed. It's like Curtis Weaver, we've talked about a lot as being flawed. Julian Okwara also. I think they can be productive, but it's not, there are real red flags there is the thing.
All right, moving forward here, let's jump to the next team, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Consider if Big Ben comes back. I like Deontay Johnson, what we saw from him last year. I think Juju is going to have to bounce back. A lot of expectations for him. Still need, though, interior offensive line and defensive line. That's where they need need the most help.
Yeah, so I'm going to actually switch this one up and give 2 names or give a name at each position instead of. So they definitely need guard. I don't think Chukwuma Okorafor is the answer at guard. To me, he was a tackle only coming out of, Western Michigan, I want to say, when he did the 3rd rounder. I didn't actually love that pick. And so I don't think that's your answer at guard. To me, if Netani Muti is on the board for them in round 2, that is the slam dunk home run pick of the draft. That is that fit makes so much sense in terms of their running scheme, what they need. I would love that if Netani Muti, Fresno State guard, went to Pittsburgh Steelers. That's my pick for them. Early, late rounders to address the defensive interior. you're not going to replace Javon Hargrave overnight. Like his pass rushing ability, his ability to push the pocket. I just don't think you're going to find that necessarily in the draft. Maybe in Neville Gallimore in round 2 is feasible, but a guy I like to just at least replace him in run defense is John Pinacini, the Utah State defensive tackle. To me,
what was that last name?
John Pinacini?
Oh, okay.
He's the only guy in this draft class with penis in his either first or last name. So John, he probably just got smoked in middle school.
Is that a red flag or a green flag? It's hard to say. Length matters though, and I think
he doesn't have great length, unfortunately.
Well,
you're not gonna love his length, Pinacini's, but he makes up. It's the motion of the ocean, they say. He makes up for it with good. He uses his hands really well, and he is, to me, the better run defender of those Utah defensive tackles between John Pinacini and Leki Fotu. He's a better run defender. Fotu offers a little more in terms of what he can do as a pocket pusher, but Pinacini, if you just want a chunk in the middle of your defense, he's your man.
Yeah, you got 2 beefcakes to the Steelers here. Netani Muti is a monster. I mean, and John Pinacini is another guy that's just like, I mean, he looks like his feet are in mud at times. I mean, not super athletic. Change of direction is kind of garbage, but I mean, those guys are beefy dudes up front. All right, moving to the Indianapolis Colts, the last team you have listed here, but I got another one for you coming up. They weren't 8-8 or above last year, but I think they made some moves this offseason, potentially make a push. But let's start with the Indianapolis Colts.
I know where you're going with this.
They need a wide receiver. I mean, you go to the Phillip Rivers 1-year deal, and I think that instantly makes you a better team than you were with Jacoby Brissett. However, you trade that 13th overall pick for DeForest Buckner, which I do think improves the team, but not at a valuable position like wide receiver. Now they don't have a round 1 pick to fill that need opposite of T.Y. Hilton. On day 2, are there options for them to attack that?
Yeah, so they have pick 34, so they're right at the top of day 2. So they have to be kind of licking their chops after T. Higgins' pro day saying, get him to fall for us, because that's Phillip Rivers type of wide receiver. Phillip Rivers loves the contested catch guys, the throw them, just give them a chance down the football field, put it on their leverage, and they come down with it. That is T. Higgins to a T. He did that extremely well. Jesus, to a T. I did that again. He did that extremely well with, the connection with Trevor Lawrence there at Clemson. So either him or someone like Michael Pittman out of USC. I think they need a big body. They wanted that to be Devin Funchess last year. Obviously, he got hurt. But that's what this kind of
also not good, which plays a role. Well. That plays a factor.
This offense needs that role, or needs a guy in that role. Phillip Rivers needs a guy like that. So Higgins or Pittman, honestly, like I hand to God believe they're going to get one of those guys at the moment. That makes too much sense for them.
Yeah, and I think with the Indianapolis Colts, I mean, you said I love that fit to a T for T. Higgins, and you fall in love with Jordan Love have been kind of constants for you of late. Can't stop saying them. But I will say this. You said in the past that if you want a big receiver in this class, you should grab T. Higgins. But I am of the opinion that Michael Pittman Jr. is not too far off. Like, Michael Pittman is good. I really do like Michael Pittman.
For an article I wrote last week about the best day 2 wide receiving options and guys we love on day 2 and why this class is so special. And, dude, watching Pittman again, he just gets
the UCLA tape. I really
much
like
everywhere.
The UCLA tape. Like, I mean, you go watch him against Darnay Holmes, which is kind of a mismatch because he's so much bigger, but like he can move well. Like his change of direction is not bad.
And he's not slow either. So he went 4.52 at 220 plus pounds.
I think he had a sub-7 second 3 cone as well, like in the 6.9s. I mean, this guy can. I don't know. Like if you are an avid listener to 2-4 Drafts, I mean, I've been on Michael Pittman Jr. for a while now. Same with Justin Jefferson.
I've been on the guy.
No, I haven't. Okay,
Austin.
I will say this.
But you were first.
Though I think where we do value him is in a good spot. Like that 30 to 40 range is good, but like you take him in the first round, I'm not going to be super concerned because I do really like what he put on tape, and he's got the NFL bloodlines. I know that means a lot to NFL teams, but let's jump to my team. You didn't have him listed here on the notes, but Las Vegas Raiders, baby. Let's roll the dice on a Super Bowl.
Wait, can I ask this question first? Because I am out of protest. Are they still your team if they're not from your hometown anymore now that they moved out of Oakland?
It's hard to say. Win, lose, or tie, Raider till I die here. I'm Oakland born and raised. It's hard to find a new team. To be fair, though, with the
I'll do it for you then. Biggest need, quarterback, round 1 option, trade the farm for Justin Herbert. There you go. I fixed you guys. How much would you hate that?
That would be rough. Okay, hear me out on this. Derek Carr, not great. I don't think they're actually legit Super Bowl contenders. You're not beating Patrick Mahomes with Derek Carr. I don't care what pieces you add more in free agency or the draft. However, they are going to be a much improved team with adding Corey Littleton, Nick Kwiatkowski. I like the Malik Collins signing. Jason Witten, Jeff Heath. Those guys aren't moving the needle. But in the draft, you have the 12th
Rod
pick.
Marinelli is going to unlock Cleveland Ferrell.
Maybe. Ferrell, by the way. It's Ferrell.
I'm going to say Ferrell.
You did. I wanted to mention this earlier in the podcast, but Arcega-Whiteside rolled off the tongue nicely.
Dropped Arcega.
It was very good. It was very good. Anyway, with the Las Vegas Raiders, they've addressed linebacker in free agency. They don't need to draft Patrick Queen or Kenneth Murray at 12 or 19. They can attack wide receiver and cornerback. Go grab Jerry Jeudy or CeeDee Lamb at 12. Even Henry Ruggs. Let's get that deep threat. And then at 19, you can go swing the bat on a corner. CJ Henderson, I think, at 19 would make a ton of sense. I know Mike Mayock and company love the Clemson guys. I think AJ Terrell could be the guy that they actually take at 19. But CJ Henderson, if he's still on the board at 19, you add the best, either Jerry Jeudy or CeeDee Lamb at 12, and then CJ Henderson at 19. I still don't think they're Super Bowl contenders with Patrick Mahomes and others in the AFC. I do think, however, this is a much improved team that's way more on track than they were after the last two draft classes.
Yes. I mean, I've debated including them as Super Bowl contenders. But like you said, are they going to get past? Do they have enough to get past Patrick Mahomes right now? I don't know, but they're in a good spot to what they did this offseason free agency and where they're at in the draft with 2 first-rounders. So I'll give you that. That could help them. That could boost them into Super Bowl contender status.
And they're fringe Super Bowl contenders. I think that's important to know. They're in a similar tier with the Bears. I mean, they just don't have a good quarterback. You don't have a good quarterback. So it's going to be.
You got to catch lightning in the bottle if you don't have a good QB, unfortunately.
And I think the Raiders have already caught that lightning with Derek Carr in 2016? I mean, it's gone. Like, that was it. That was the year. And now the injuries have kind of made him into a different quarterback, and the system has completely changed. I don't know. It's an interesting situation, but I'm sticking him in there. Las Vegas Raiders have definitely improved.
I feel like that is the thing that doesn't really get talked about. He plays the injury. I feel like scared him. Like he plays differently. And I thought
the leg injury.
I thought similarly about Aaron Rodgers after he broke his clavicle in 2013. I just thought there was kind of like a scaredness of getting hurt to his game that kind of like it's hard to describe. That I'm not sure you can know unless you've gone through an injury like that.
Yeah, well, so he had the leg injury, which obviously was rough and looked awful on the football field. Some say he cried. He was saying he didn't cry. I don't really care. Let's not get into that. But he also hurt his back. He hurt his back pretty bad. And I think those two injuries combined have kind of affected him. That's why you maybe see phantom pressure kind of, forcing him into bad decisions or forcing him to throw the ball away. However, that doesn't really justify the 4th down throwaways, like the 4th down, the turf or anything.
There's still some
bad.
bad. Yeah.
There's still some bad. But that's going to do it for the 2-for-1 Drafts podcast, the Friday edition. God, I hope the audio was better. We apologize for Riggins joining in on the podcast. He's a guest, but you can't really.
I don't apologize. He's a co-host.
You can't really control him. He comes in, he comes out. He's a good guy though. But thanks again for listening. Remember, you can find us on Spotify, Stitcher, and Apple Podcasts while you are in quarantine with the COVID-19 pandemic. This is Austin Gayle, Mike Renner, 2-for-1 Drafts.